in our last video, we talked about the rising tension in the South China Sea, how every week seems to bring a new confrontation between the Philippine Coast Guard and Chinese vessels. Well, what happened just days ago could mark a turning point in this struggle. And it's not just another headline, it's history in the making.
You are sailing within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone.
On the diplomatic front, Manila and Tokyo have finalized the Reciprocal Access Agreement, set to officially take effect on September 11, 2025.
On the entry into force of the agreement between the Republic of the Philippines and Japan concerning the facilitation of reciprocal access and cooperation between the armed forces of the Philippines and the self-defense forces of Japan.
For the first time ever, Japanese troops will have the legal framework to train here in the Philippines, and our soldiers will be able to do the same in Japan. Think about that. Two countries that once faced each other as enemies in World War II, now preparing to fight side by side to protect their future. But here's where things get even more dramatic. Japan isn't only sending personnel, they're preparing to transfer 6 Abukuma-class destroyer escorts to the Philippine Navy. These warships, armed with anti-submarine and anti-ship capabilities, will be a game changer for our maritime defense. And the scope of this partnership doesn't stop at two nations. Military leaders from the Philippines, Japan, the US, and Australia are now working on a one-theater strategy, linking operations in the East and South China Seas into a single, united shield against growing threats. Just last month, Japan, the US, and the Philippines staged joint Coast Guard drills near Kyushu, practicing the kind of coordination that could make the difference in real-life confrontations. For Filipinos, this is more than symbolism. It means our sovereignty is finally backed not just by words, but by hardware, ships, and real allies who are willing to stand with us. And for our US audience, it's proof that the Indo-Pacific is uniting like never before. So buckle up, because what's unfolding right now isn't just cooperation. It's the birth of a de facto alliance taking shape before our very eyes. When we talk about the growing alliance between the Philippines and Japan today, we can't just look at the present. We need to understand the long and complicated road that brought us here. For many Filipinos, the memory of World War II is still raw. From 1942 to 1945, the Philippines endured one of the darkest chapters in its history under Japanese occupation. Cities like Manila were reduced to ashes, communities were torn apart, and countless lives were lost in atrocities such as the Bataan Death March and the Battle of Manila, one of the bloodiest urban battles of the war. For older generations, these wounds run deep, and even decades later, the shadow of that suffering makes some Filipinos wary whenever Japan's military role in Asia is discussed. But history didn't end in 1945. In the ashes of defeat, Japan was forced to reinvent itself under a new identity, a pacifist nation. Its post-war constitution, particularly Article 9, prohibited the country from using its military for offensive operations. Instead, Japan poured its energy into rebuilding its economy, channeling resources into technology, trade, and diplomacy. For the Philippines, this meant that by the 1960s and 1970s, Japan had shifted from a former occupier to one of our largest investors and aid donors. Japanese companies helped build infrastructure, funded scholarships, and boosted trade. The partnership slowly rebuilt trust, not through weapons or troops, but through development projects, loans, and technology transfers. For decades, this relationship was friendly but cautious, defined more by economics than by shared security interests. The real turning point came in the mid-2010s, when the South China Sea began to emerge as the new front line of regional tensions. China's construction of artificial islands, deployment of Coast Guard vessels, and growing naval presence alarmed not just the Philippines, but also Japan, whose own territorial disputes with China in the East China Sea mirrored Manila's challenges in the West Philippine Sea. Suddenly, both countries found themselves confronting the same threat, Beijing's assertiveness on the seas. This was when the Philippines-Japan partnership began to evolve from economic cooperation into strategic security collaboration. Japan started donating multi-role patrol vessels to the Philippine Coast Guard. Vessels that now patrol contested waters where Chinese incursions are most frequent. Leaders from both nations began speaking with one voice in regional summits, emphasizing the importance of freedom of navigation and the rule of law under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. What had once been a relationship burdened by wartime memories was now being reshaped by a shared vision of stability, maritime freedom, and regional security. From a past scarred by conflict, the Philippines and Japan have built a partnership that is now stronger than ever. No longer defined only by trade and aid, but by the shared responsibility of protection, deterrence, and survival in a volatile Indo-Pacific region. First up is the Reciprocal Access Agreement, or RAA. Think of it as a de facto visiting forces agreement, but this time between the Philippines and Japan. What does it do? It lays down the legal and administrative framework for Japanese self-defense forces to enter and operate in the Philippines, and for our troops to do the same in Japan. Whether it's for joint military exercises, humanitarian missions, or disaster relief operations. This isn't just a handshake deal. It's the first time Japan has signed such an agreement with an Asian country, a powerful sign of how seriously Tokyo views its partnership with Manila. And here's the kicker. It officially takes effect on September 11, 2025, marking a historic milestone. For Filipinos, it means we'll see Japanese ships and aircraft working alongside ours more often, building muscle memory for real-world contingencies. For Japan, it shows their shift from a pacifist stance to a proactive security role in the Indo-Pacific. But the RAA is just one piece of the puzzle. Japan has also rolled out something brand new, the Official Security Assistance Program, or OSA. This initiative was launched to help partner countries. The Philippines was under OSA. We've already received coastal radar systems, rigid-hulled inflatable boats, and $10.6 million worth of defense aid. These aren't symbolic gifts. They're practical tools that help us keep an eye on our waters, respond faster to maritime threats, and boost the day-to-day readiness of our forces. For Japan, OSA is a way to build stronger regional alliances. For us, it's a tangible lifeline in the face of growing pressure in the West Philippine Sea.
And let's not forget the most visible show of cooperation:
Joint exercises and drills. In just the past few months, we've seen Philippine, Japanese, and U.S. Coast Guards conducting maritime drills near Kyushu. On the naval side, Japanese and Philippine forces have stepped up joint patrols and training missions in contested waters. The purpose of these drills is crystal clear: to enhance operational readiness, coordination, and interoperability. In simple terms, it's about making sure our sailors, soldiers, and Coast Guards know how to operate as one team when the real test comes, whether that's a humanitarian crisis, a natural disaster, or an encounter at sea with a foreign aggressor. Put all of this together, the RAA, the OSA, and the drills, and what you see is more than just cooperation. You see the building blocks of a de facto alliance, forged not by words but by steel, strategy, and shared purpose. Numbers don't lie, and when you look at the scale of Japan's military support for the Philippines, it becomes clear just how fast this partnership is deepening. Under Tokyo's newly created Official Security Assistance Program, the Philippines became the very first beneficiary, securing $10.6 million worth of aid. This wasn't just a check. It translated into coastal radar systems that extend our maritime watch and rigid-hulled inflatable boats that give our forces speed and maneuverability where it matters most. And that's on top of Japan's earlier investments in our security. Since 2016, Tokyo has provided the Philippine Coast Guard with 10 Parola-class multi-role response vessels that now form the backbone of our patrol fleet. In fact, if you look closely, a dozen of the PCG's most important ships today trace their origins back to Japanese shipyards. Filipino officials are not shy about highlighting the impact. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. recently described the Reciprocal Access Agreement as a potent instrument of two nations with a shared goal of protecting their territories against unilateral attempts.
It is a function of the strong people-to-people ties, shared values, and most especially a shared purpose. At the end of the day, what it means is that our most potent instrument of national power, which is our armed force, and that of Japan, can work together, but not for destabilizing the world order, but a shared purpose to preserve it against unilateral attempts to reshape the world order into the selfish benefit of parties to the exclusion of others.
That one phrase, potent instrument, captures how Manila sees the RAA. Not just another treaty, but a living tool to push back against intimidation. From the Japanese side, the tone is equally resolute. Ambassador Endo Kazuya stressed that the agreement reflects the urgency and strategic value both nations attach to our security and defense cooperation. A diplomatic way of saying Japan knows the stakes in the South China Sea are too high to sit back any longer.
And we've already seen how these investments and agreements play out in the real world.
Take the Scarborough Shoal incident earlier this month. During a mission to resupply Filipino fishermen, the BRP Suluan, one of those Japan-funded vessels, was confronted by Chinese ships. Tensions escalated dangerously, with water cannons blasting and a bizarre collision between two Chinese vessels themselves. Without the resilience and capability of these Japan-backed ships, that mission could have ended in disaster. And this wasn't a one-off. Just weeks before, Philippine, Japanese, and U.S. Coast Guards were conducting joint drills near Kyushu, practicing coordinated patrols and real-time communication. These trilateral patrols aren't symbolic photo ops. They're rehearsals for exactly the kind of high-stakes encounters we keep seeing in the West Philippine Sea. So when we put it all together, the $10.6 million aid package, the 10 patrol vessels Japan has already delivered, the strong words from Teodoro and Endo, and the live-action tests like Scarborough Shoal and joint patrols, it's obvious this partnership has already moved beyond paper promises. It's ships in the water, radars on our coastlines, and a powerful message. The Philippines and Japan are no longer cautious neighbors haunted by history, but allies standing shoulder to shoulder against the storms brewing in the Indo-Pacific. At the heart of this accelerating partnership lies one undeniable driving force: China's increasingly aggressive behavior in the South China Sea. From ramming and water cannoning Filipino vessels to shadowing patrols in our exclusive economic zone, Beijing's actions have crossed from intimidation to outright danger. Just this month's Scarborough Shoal incident was a sharp reminder. Our Coast Guard ships, many of them built in Japan, are on the front line of these high-stakes encounters. For Manila and Tokyo, the message is crystal clear. Only through stronger cooperation can they resist this pressure and safeguard sovereignty.
But this isn't just a Philippines-Japan story. Enter the United States, whose alliance network has long been the backbone of Indo-Pacific security. What we're seeing now is a shift from the old hub-and-spokes model, where Washington was the hub and its allies were the spokes, to a new spoke-to-spoke partnership. The Philippines and Japan are no longer waiting for the U.S. to connect the dots. They are building direct ties with each other, while still anchored to America's security umbrella. The result is a trilateral partnership where drills, patrols, and intelligence sharing now involve three militaries acting in sync. Strategically, this is about integrated deterrence, ensuring that any move by China, whether in the South China Sea or across the Taiwan Strait, would meet a coordinated, multinational response. For Filipinos, this means our defense no longer rests solely on one ally. It's part of a wider network of like-minded partners. For Americans, it means their allies are no longer passive. They're active players in shared defense. And the future? Expect the RAA to be just the beginning. Once it takes effect on September 11, 2025, we can anticipate larger-scale military drills, more advanced technology transfers, and deeper intelligence cooperation. Imagine Philippine and Japanese forces training side by side with U.S. units in exercises that simulate real-world contingencies, from defending sea lanes to responding to disasters. For the Philippines, that means rapid modernization without shouldering the costs alone. For Japan, it means stepping firmly into its evolving role as a proactive security actor. That's the big story here: the transformation of Japan from a post-war pacifist nation bound by Article 9 into a key security partner in the Indo-Pacific. And the Philippines, once just a recipient of development aid, is now a central pillar of this strategy. Our location, our seas, and our shared values making us indispensable in this new security architecture. The trajectory is clear. From wartime enemies to post-war economic partners to today's de facto allies on the front line of Indo-Pacific security. And if current trends continue, the coming years will see Japan and the Philippines not just cooperating, but standing as equals in a coalition determined to keep the seas free and secure.
To the Philippines' efforts to advance our defense capabilities in support of the Philippines' firm assertion of its sovereignty and sovereign rights in today's fast-evolving regional security landscape. It goes to demonstrate consistently the value of our strengthened strategic partnership towards the stability of the Indo-Pacific. The RAA is a natural progression of the cooperation between the Philippines Armed Forces and the Japanese Self-Defense Forces.
From the dark shadows of World War II, through decades of careful diplomacy and economic rebuilding, all the way to today's frontline cooperation, the story of Philippines-Japan relations is one of remarkable transformation. What was once a relationship scarred by conflict has now become a partnership defined by trust, resilience, and shared purpose. The Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, set to take effect on September 11, 2025, marks a historic leap forward, Japan's first such pact in Asia, unlocking joint training, disaster relief, and greater security coordination. Alongside it, Japan's Official Security Assistance, OSA, has already delivered $10.6 million in aid, radars, patrol boats, and modern vessels that are literally keeping our waters safe. Add to this the steady rhythm of joint drills and trilateral patrols with the United States, and it's clear what began as incremental cooperation has matured into a powerful de facto alliance. But here's the bigger picture. This military support isn't just about radars, patrol vessels, or destroyers. It's about building a strategic partnership grounded in common values and shared threats. With China's aggressive maneuvers challenging stability across the South China Sea and beyond, the Philippines and Japan aren't just protecting their own shores. They're contributing to a security framework that keeps the entire Indo-Pacific balanced and free. And that's the final takeaway. This alliance is no longer a cautious experiment, it's becoming a vital cornerstone of regional stability. For Filipinos, it means our sovereignty has stronger backing than ever before. For Japan, it signals a bold evolution from pacifism to proactive leadership. Together, these two nations are proving that history's wounds can give rise to tomorrow's strongest alliances. Alliances that stand ready, not just with equipment and agreements, but with resolve, unity, and the determination to safeguard the peace of generations to come.
To the continued success of the strengthened strategic partnership of the Philippines and Japan.
If you like the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for deep analysis of contemporary issues.